I have to, from all the way here in Dallas, marvel at the antics of Dan Andrews. The Victorian Premier's Teflon coating may finally be wearing off. He is now embroiled in multiple controversies, from mystery surrounding a serious car accident to questions again being raised about that fall he suffered down the stairs of a Mornington Peninsula property, to serious corruption concerns. There are 4 separate probes on his government right now by the Independent Broad-Based Anti-Corruption Commission. But the Premier doesn't want to answer any questions about IBAC.
I've issued a statement and I've got no further comments to make.
No, what are you responding to? What's the statement in reference to?
I've issued the statement.
Yeah, what's it in reference to?
I've issued the statement, and I'll again make it very clear for you that if you want to know what IBAC is or isn't doing, then you should speak to IBAC. I behave appropriately at all times. That's the oath that I swore. I take that very, very seriously. IBAC has also issued a statement, so I'd refer you to that also.
It's just extraordinary stuff. And given the current scandals involving the Premier and the many past scandals, how can Australia's elite netballers take his $15 million? The money the Premier has pledged may not be his, but it is nevertheless tainted. Put to one side the many integrity scandals and look at the way he has led an inept and deeply dishonest government which has treated citizens with a combination of disdain, neglect and outright cruelty during the pandemic. This is a Premier who forced the sick and elderly to die alone without their family and friends by their side, and politicised our police force to the extent that many law-abiding citizens have lost trust in the thin blue line. This is the Premier of the state where police crash-tackled people for being maskless outdoors and shot scores of protesters in the back with non-lethal rounds. This is the man who kept thousands of Victorians stranded for months in New South Wales, unable to cross the border to go to their own homes. And many of Andrews' worst policies during the pandemic disproportionately impacted women and children, from his government's absurd playground bans to the longest school closures in the country, to IVF bans that devastated women so desperate to have children. If the netballers feel entitled to grandstand about a businesswoman's dead father, then they can surely take an interest in where this taxpayer largesse comes from and how they're being cynically used by Dan Andrews. After all, it's the netballers who chose to inject politics into their sport and sponsorship arrangements. They cannot now indulge in selective activism and ignore what has happened in Victoria under Dan Andrews. How can they refuse to wear Hancock prospecting logos because they object not to what Gina Rinehart has said or done, but what to her father many decades ago? How can they do that but then turn a blind eye to Dan Andrews' many scandals? I'm sorry, that won't do. If they accept this taxpayer handout from Dan Andrews, then they are endorsing what's happened under his reign.